My name is Frank Etter, and I work for Garco Construction and have for more than the past 40 years. My director while I was here was Ken Dunham, who was here a very short time and then left. The staff I had working with me was Terry Goebel, who was the past president. Terry was from a family that spent many years with the AGC. My vice president was Dan Murphy. Dan was with Central Premix, another company that was with the AGC for many years. Behind Dan we had Dick Richter, who was with the company out of the Tri-Cities, George Grant. And then behind him was Joe Lavernier, who Lavernier also had a long standing with the AGC. And Jerry Cox was there as well. So we had a real good group of people working for us. I think the biggest issue we faced during our presidency was financial, and partially driven by our need for more companies to get into the AGC. So a lot of our time was spent recruiting, trying to get new people, and then trying to increase the finances. One interesting story happened back then. Leidig Construction, who was a big company working for us at the time, had moved a good deal of their company over to Seattle, so was working over there. Consequently, Paul Leidig, who was kind of a notorious member of the AGC, was paying dues over in Seattle, but not here. And we had to try and find a way to get Paul to pay some dues here. So I called him one day, and my job was to see if we could get Paul to pay some dues here. And when I called him, I said, "This is Frank Etter from the AGC," and he's in his normal way, "So what are you calling me for?" I said, "Well, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about the dues for the AGC. I'd like to come over and sit down with you." "Why do you want to sit down with me?" He says, "You just yell at me, I'll yell at you, and nothing will get done." I said, no, I just want to talk to you for a few minutes." And I thought, oh man, I've got my hands full here. So he did say, "Okay, come on over." And I did, sat down with him, and my program for him was, "Paul, you're working in Seattle, I know, but you're still working part-time in the Spokane area." I said, expecting a battle all the way, I said, "How about if you pay half your dues to us and half over in Seattle?" He's, "Okay, I will." That was the end of the conversation. I felt real good about getting out of that the way I did. I think mainly it was just to build the organization financially, and basically the number of contractors we had played a big part of that. So recruiting was a big part of it, and I think we did a pretty fair job of recruiting some new companies into the AGC. I guess what really had an impact on me was, while you were vice president, and then again when you were president, you went back to Washington, D.C. to see the national AGC in action. It was so impressive. First of all, their office was maybe 10 blocks from the White House. And you spent a bit of time there and being introduced to local governmental people that helped. And you learned kind of just how important the AGC was in getting work for companies throughout the country. And you learned a little bit about how influential construction companies were in the country to make things function. You know, you were involved with buildings, you were involved with bridges, you were involved with roads. All these things were instrumental, and you talked to people that really had a say and that could make things happen for you. So very impressed with time spent in Washington, D.C. It was, I would say, on a slow grow. You know, it wasn't really booming, and it wasn't in the dumps, but you had to work for everything you got. And so we did, the AGC was really instrumental in working with the community, government, you know, your municipalities, in order to try and get more work in the line. I remember the AGC staff, Carolyn in particular, you know, basically they made your job easy as the president of the AGC. Not to say it was just a glory position, but you had so much support from the AGC staff that it made your job easy. Well, when I came back out of the service, I had spent a year in New York and a year and a half in South Korea looking for a job. And I thought about inland asphalt, I thought about other activities, and I ended up going to work for Wayne Garso, who was a friend of my father-in-law's. And Wayne hired me on as an estimator, and the longer I worked there, he moved me into sales, and I became sales manager for Garco Metal Building Systems, which he had started in 1954. And working for Wayne and being able to progress as we grew was a very important thing to me. And you know, early on, my former grade school friend and classmate, Tim Welsh, came back to town after being in the service as well. And we got together. Tim worked for a couple other companies, Levi Postlethwaite being the last, and then he came from Levi Postlethwaite over to running the construction company at Garco. And we had metal buildings at the time, and I was out selling the metal buildings. He was putting up all the buildings around Spokane. So we had a great time together, and Wayne Garso at one time wanted to sell the company, and so he looked around, and we kind of had high hopes, and he was looking for money, so he ended up selling that company to a Dallas-based corporation, and that was that. But fortunately, that company decided to try and get into the Fortune 500. Spent a lot of money getting there, but at the same time, interest rates went sky high and inflation was going crazy, and they had to turn around and divest themselves of a lot of things they had purchased, one being Garco Metal Buildings. Well, fortunately, Tim and another fellow and I were able to purchase the company, and it worked out great for us. And so here I was with a grade school friend and lifelong friend, having this lifelong friendship and partnership that we still enjoy today. So that was just kind of a long lead-in to where we are. There were several significant projects, you know, some larger than others. I know we did a lot of work, industrial work at Kaiser. West Valley High School was a job that I really liked and we were able to do. The vet clinic at Washington State was a great one that we did that, you know, you were working in a hospital that was for animals that was as nice as any hospital you've ever been in. Another one that really is near and dear to my heart and to Tim's as well is a new gymnasium for St. Aloysius Grade School, where we both went to grade school over 50 years ago. And it's funny that we played basketball in a gym that, you know, if you shot the ball over 12, 15 feet high, it hit the ceiling. And you wonder how somebody could learn to play there. Well, that's where John Stockton learned to play. So, you know, it was a pretty good gym. But in the last 4 or 5 years, we've been able to build a new gym and daycare for St. Aloysius Grade School. And it had to be one of the most rewarding projects that I've done, to be able to go back there. And I was the 7th of 8 kids from my family that went through that school. Tim's family went through that school. You know, we both lived, you know, 3 or 4 blocks from the school. So to be able to do that for the school was really felt fulfilling. Well, Garco belongs to the AGC for many reasons, for the exposure, for the opportunities that the AGC has out there, for the education that AGC provides, for the classes they provide to our superintendents and to our estimators and everybody that has anything to do with the company. They kind of coordinate a group of contractors, subcontractors, general contractors that support one another. And, you know, just throughout our 40+ years of membership, we've had several of us have the opportunity to be the president of the AGC, to go back to Washington, D.C., to see the tremendous importance and support we're given, all the way from the national level down to the local level. So just so many things, classes and so forth that they teach that supports construction has benefited us greatly over the years. We are the AGC.